David Warneke. He's the head of tax technical at BDO. Thank you so much, David, for joining us again. Super. So tax is not really a thing that the Finance Minister will talk about much in the midterm budget, but I suppose he'll give us some indications of where he's hoping to draw revenue over the medium term. What are your expectations?
Well, I think, as you correctly say, this budget isn't so much about tax changes and tax policy. It's more really about economics. I think that it's going to be a difficult balancing act. I think that there's got to be a maintenance of fiscal discipline, and I expect that to continue. But I think that what I'm really looking for is more announcement around how the private sector can get involved, because that's really what's needed. It's clear that the government doesn't have the revenue itself to grow the economy, but I'm very hopeful that with the infrastructure projects that are in the pipeline and the funding mechanisms that have been alluded to with this credit guarantee vehicle that could initially help with the transmission of electricity and various other projects, that will lead to growth in the economy. That's really what we need. But I'm not really expecting major policy changes with regard to taxation itself in this budget.
So without necessarily getting too technical, South Africans are worried about a potential move to a more privatized type of setup. How do you see these synergies between the public and private sector working such that, in a way, the government still has control while the private sector helps to turn things around?
Well, I think that's what's, I think public-private partnership models are being worked on at the moment, the regulatory regime around them to enable them. But I think it is clear that the government is going to have to give up somewhere along the line some of the power that it holds over the economy for growth, meaningful growth, to actually occur. But I do think that there's going to be an announcement today in the budget around the whole model and how it's going to potentially work, and hopefully then lead to growth, because there's got to be investment by the private sector, and the private sector can't have you can't deprive them of a say, in how the projects are actually run.
Yeah, you can't have your cake and eat it necessarily. And then one last thing, are you optimistic about the future? Because sentiment is said to be on the up, with the GNU. Of course, we do hear, some, disruptions here and there among them, but seemingly they do seem to be focused on the issue of economic growth and job creation. Are you confident going forward, and that confidence will translate in the private sector investing?
Yeah, I do think it all depends on growth and whether we can get growth going in the economy. That is the main thing around whether business can feel confident in the future. Of course, we've got the political landscape that's subject to change as well. And as you mentioned, I think it's great for business that the GNU is probably the best outcome, or is the best outcome, I think, that we could have had under the various options that were under consideration. So I think that's been very positive. And of course, the fact that we've had power for 7 months is also a major factor. So I think all of those things are very hopeful and point to potentially a rosy future. But I think what it's going to really depend on is growth.
Thank you so much, David, for that. David Warneke, he is the head of tax technical at BDO, just speaking to us there, talking about, the continued flow of energy that's coming into the country with no load shedding since March, which has been really positive. But of course, Transnet has been a real problem with the rail network, and a lot of investment is needed there. No doubt the Finance Minister will be speaking to that. And as David was saying, this framework around public and private partnerships, which is seen as a key in terms of moving the infrastructural investments around, that if they actually come to pass, we should see good growth prospects for the South African economy.